Good news, everybody. The Neocons are back in action. The swamp is back and better than ever. And that is one of the things that has been made very, very clear over the past day following the aftermath of Venezuela. And I say aftermath, the Venezuela situation is still very much ongoing, very much like what happened with Iran in the middle of last year. It's not the sort of thing where you just go in, you do a strike, you go in, you kidnap the president of a country, and then it's just done. It's just over, and that's the last you'll ever hear of it. These are ongoing, long-term geopolitical situations that we'll also have to see how they develop. But it has revealed some other things that some people have said have already been clear, but I think it's been made explicit now where the Trump administration has gone, which is it has completely aligned itself with a neoconservative global foreign policy agenda. But first, just to update people on what's going on with Maduro. So Maduro is in New York City right now, and he has pled not guilty after capturing shock USA attack on Venezuela. I don't think that's going to work out great for you, frankly.
I imagine there are going to be many lefty lawyers that want to represent him, though.
It's weird that it's in New York, isn't it?
It is strange. It's also funny that the judge presiding over the whole thing is 92 years old.
Jesus.
Hang it up at this point, buddy. Come on.
The crypt keeper has come out of retirement.
Yeah, you're older than a boomer at 92 years old, man. Maybe, like, this is the one time I'm going to say step down and let it go to a boomer, a younger generation.
Is that unironically silent generation?
I think it might be. I think it might be, because that would be pre-45, obviously. Either way, I don't think it really matters what Maduro pleads. It all depends on what kind of backroom dealings are going on, if he's able to negotiate something outside of court. And speaking of which, regarding the actual Venezuelan incident in the first place, I mentioned something that a lot of people have been thinking over the past few days yesterday, which is going in with that kind of precision strike, having no casualties on your own side, only casualties on the opposing side, and having it be so quick and perfectly pulled off, especially with no military intervention from the opposition, seems like something that could only really be achieved if you had inside help. And while it's not been explicitly said, there was this New York Times article from a couple of days ago titled "How Trump Fixed on a Maduro Loyalist as Venezuela's New Leader," pointing out that the Vice President Delcy Rodriguez had already essentially been tapped by US intelligence services as the new leader if the situation of a Maduro deposition came to be. And it says here, weeks earlier than the event, US officials had already settled on an acceptable candidate to replace Mr. Maduro, at least for the time being, the vice president who had impressed Trump officials with her management of Venezuela's crucial oil industry. She'd also made it clear that she was more willing to work alongside the Americans than Maduro was, and Maduro had been going up and dancing in the past week or so before he got deposed, making it clear he wasn't taking American threats seriously. So it seems that they say here, a US official, not named in the article, said, "I've been watching her career for a long time, so I have some sense of who she is and what she's about. I'm not claiming that she's the permanent solution to the country's problems, but she's certainly someone we think we can work with at a much more professional level than we were able to do with him." So it does seem that at the very least, this might have been an internal coup, backed by the US government, so that this woman can get in charge. And as we've said, we were saying before we came on stream, as was mentioned yesterday, the likelihood is removing sanctions, working with the US for the oil industry in Venezuela is probably going to massively alleviate a lot of Venezuela's internal economic problems.
I'll talk about that in my segment, if that's all right.
Yeah, of course.
I'm not a betting man, but I would not be surprised one bit. I'd put everything I own on the fact that it was so easy because there was no resistance in the regime, and they're just like, here you go, because obviously things haven't worked out in Venezuela, and it's not that hard.
What are you talking about? They have socialism. Sorry.
But it's not that hard to imagine the fact that, well, maybe if we could sell our oil, we could be better off. And that's not a hard thing to comprehend. And people were just like, well, if we get rid of Maduro, then we can do that. So seems like a very strong incentive to me to turn him over.
I also like food.
But on that note, again, it's probably going to massively improve the lives of a lot of Venezuelans. I don't think anybody is going to contradict that. Again, it's important to note that when we see the actions of a large American empire on the foreign stage, as much as it's easy to get caught up in the hoorah USA hype of the whole thing, that the action that's being taken for the most part is not for you. It is for the sake of privileged oligarchs with their own political and economic agendas. Typically, my rule that I like to keep in mind at all times is that if something is not done specifically for you, any benefits that you get from it will be temporary and purely incidental. And in fact, given what we know about the corrupt oligarchy that runs the Western world right now, I mean, just go back and look at Epstein and everybody associated with him, typically, if you do accrue any benefits from it, you will be punished for them later. Brexit. What did we get for Brexit? We got the Boris wave. And it's going to be the same pattern everywhere. And so it's important to see whose agenda this is fueling, because America will not have deposed Maduro for the sake of the Venezuelan people. As Donald Trump has made very clear, this is very much related to oil and hemisphere security, which could, for the short term, maybe even for the long term, result in better oil prices and gas prices for Americans, which I'm not going to say is a bad thing for the time being. But this was something that came out yesterday. A picture of Donald Trump with the swamp himself, Lindsey Graham, one of the most notorious war hawks in all of Washington, posing together with a Make Iran Great Again hat, which had been signed by Trump. Very clearly, Trump, through this and through many of his actions over the past year, has decided to shake off those people who are part of a non-interventionist MAGA side, people like Marjorie Taylor Greene, people like Thomas Massie, who I'll speak about in a moment, and people like Matt Gaetz, for instance, all people who were not fans of the same backers that somebody like Lindsey Graham is. He's shaken them off, and he has fully aligned himself with the Lindsey Graham types, and he's also shaken off people like Elon Musk. The past year has been him kind of getting rid of anybody who wouldn't be in favour of these kinds of actions.
I thought Trump was meant to get rid of the swamp creatures, not summon up its most powerful representative. Like, it's a very strange thing. I couldn't believe when I saw this. I think both you and I picked up on it and were talking about it.
A lot of people were sharing videos of Donald Trump circa around 2015 and the lead up to his initial campaign, when he was heavily critical of Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama's involvement in foreign intervention, pointing out the trillions of dollars that had been wasted on it and all of the human rights abuses, the loss of American life that came with it. And I think what's become clear typically now is that it was just a cudgel to beat Hillary Clinton with at the time, and it was beneficial for him to say at the time, and now that he is in charge and thinks that he is able to work with these same swamp creatures for successful foreign intervention military action, that he's more than happy to align himself with them, especially because they are all taking money from similar backers as he is.
It's funny that his objection is it's costing too much and getting too many people killed. I'm going to do it cheaper and get 0 people killed.
Well, for the time being, we'll see how it runs in the long term.
I think there's an important difference here, because the Venezuela thing, they did do it on the cheap. There's no loss of American life. And so I've seen lots of people say, well, okay, in this instance, the benefits to America in getting rid of a hostile nation close to us was worth it. And so
got rid of the nation.
You know what I mean?
Well, that's exactly the thing, is the vice president, who it seems that they tapped to take over, has been wishy-washy now that she has been put into power on how much she will cooperate with America. She initially came out with anti-American statements that might have been to placate elements of the government that were still pro-Maduro that remain, but ultimately, other than Maduro, the infrastructure of the Venezuelan government is still there. And whether or not there are people who are compliant with him in power, they can still cause, if there is an occupation, as Trump has said, a lot of headaches. It's not as foreign intervention, even if it's in a weak country in South America, is not as simple as you kidnap the leader, put somebody you like in charge, and then everybody does everything that you say, no questions asked, and everything goes off without a hitch.
I tell you what, if Trump somehow flukes into that being the case, though...
If it did... If it did, I'll eat my words.
I know, right? Because I'm not saying that's what's going to happen, but I don't know why, but I can kind of see it going that way.
Well,
you know what I mean?
If they were to purely focus their attention on this, but already they are making gestures and outright statements that they're going to start targeting other countries.
Well, I mean,
it's not going to be as easy like Iran and Cuba. There's going to be a lot more defence.
So there's a thing about this, which is a lot of these sort of legacy 20th century regimes are kind of ripe to fall, right? Like,
is Iran ripe to fall?
Yeah,
the IRGC is still very entrenched.
Yeah, I'm not saying they're not entrenched, but they don't have the support of their own population.
And the IRGC and Iran still has, I mean, that was probably part of the Venezuela action, access to shipping routes and resources that are still important.
They're not anything, but there's a kind of ripening of the circumstance, which is, you know, everyone in Venezuela hate Maduro. The Iranian mullahs are not popular. The Castro regime in Cuba is not popular. Like, it's becoming apparent that actually this was just the wrong side of history, right?
I mean, frankly, I don't care about the well-being
I'm not saying we should. Right? But what I'm
people.
I know, I'm not saying we should. I'm not saying they should do it.
I'm of the mind that this kind of direct American force, I mean, people were saying in the wake of this that it turns out you can just do things. Great, well, if you can just do things, if that's the lesson to take from this, if you're not doing certain other things, like rounding up all of the illegals in America and shipping them off, I have to make I have to take the conclusion that's a purposeful decision not to do that thing.
Yes. But the thing is, what I'm trying to say, though, is that a lot, and we'll talk about this in my segment, it's clear that the capitalist world order has won. Right. And so these kind of anachronistic legacy 20th century institutions and organizations that are against the capitalist order, they just look like they're out of time. Like, what the hell is an Iranian mullah? What are you doing here? No, your own people don't want you there. Nobody else wants you there. Nobody thinks about you. You seem archaic and ridiculous, just like Maduro's socialism. It's like, this is for another century, mate.
I don't think it's quite that simple. I wouldn't say the capitalist world order as it exists right now is necessarily, because what you're essentially saying there is end of history.
No, I'm not. No. I'm not.
Because it would be very, very easy to say that the political system.
Hang on. I'm not saying
the capitalist order behind America during the 1980s and the fall of the Soviet Union was the right side, and it would never face any challenges again. And clearly, that has not.
I'm not saying that capitalism is or liberalism is the eternal model of governance and economics. What I'm saying is, in the late 19th century and early 20th century, there was a competition between capitalism and socialism and fascism. Which one would be the thing that goes into the new era? And we had that play out all through the 20th century. And those ones lost. They lost that competition. Now, I'm not saying that capitalism is the last economic system or political system. It's not. It's just, it is what is here now. I see it very much like the death of the Greek city-state, right? Like when Philip of Macedon defeats Thebes and Athens, it signals very much that city-states are just over, right? I mean, it's not the end of history. History is obviously still going to carry on. The great powers are going to fight, blah, blah, blah. But the Greek idea of, we can just have our independent city-states and have an alliance, no, that's over. It's empires now, right? And that's what I'm talking about. It's not socialism and capitalism or, Islamism and, whatever the mullahs have.
Well, I definitely...
It's not that. That's all over.
I definitely agree that the old binaries are not... Are not they're anachronistic now. Yeah, you are right that they are.
And we're moving into something else, and there will be things after this. It's just right now this is what it is, and this has won, and they just have to come to terms with it.
Either way, so he is making statements saying things like Cuba is ready to fall, and here you can see Lindsey Graham at his side salivating, probably masturbating out of camera.
It's the first erection Lindsey Graham's had in like 30 years.
Yes. And look at him.
We can't really hear that, Samson, by the way.
But Cuba now has no income. They got all of their income from Venezuela, from the Venezuelan oil. They're not getting any of it. And Cuba literally is ready to fall. And you have a lot of great Cuban Americans that are going to be very happy about this.
Marco Rubio.
Again, it's this like Cuba's ready to fall, like they could just go into a decapitation strike or some kind of on-the-ground invasion, and then it's just as simple as we've won now, like a video game or something.
The thing is, like I said, I got this feeling that this is kind of going to work out for Trump, because
I mean, maybe. Maybe.
Let me put my case forward, and don't get me wrong. I'm happy if if this goes completely the other way. I'm happy to say, well, I'm just some guy who doesn't know, right? But there's something about the overstaying their welcome. Like the socialists have clearly overstayed their welcome, right? Everyone hates them in Cuba. Everyone hates them in Venezuela, and actually, everyone in the West is just fat and happy, which is why we're not having revolutions. Like the people in those countries and the people of Iran, like there are constant protests, and there's currently one going on now, like not an uprising, I think is appropriate to call it, but like huge amounts of civil unrest because people are just really sick of this way of governance, these kind of authoritarian, autocratic methods of governance. And so it does kind of feel like the moment is ripening where, yeah, they'll probably fall. And as Trump pointed out, there are millions of them in the West who actually would like to go home. Right, there's something like 8 million Venezuelans currently in exile. Like, if 8 million Venezuelans go home,
like I've said, for the average Venezuelan on the ground, it will be interesting to see that they will probably have their lives improved. But we'll see whether these people end up going back.
We will, but I suspect that millions of Venezuelans probably will actually leave America, and so actually that is Trump accomplishing something incidentally for us. Don't get me wrong, he's not doing it for us. But at least incidentally, we'll have some benefit out of it.
Either way, carrying on again. So, Lindsey Graham posted about this. Another great day with the President of the United States, who's brought America back stronger than ever at home and abroad. God bless our Commander-in-Chief and all the brave men and women who serve under him. There's the picture. I posted about this saying this is just open neocon agenda with Iran particularly, and people were trying to tell me this isn't 2003 anymore, blah, 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 blah. These aren't the same people. This isn't the same thing. And
it's the same person.
I had to point out that this is literally the same people with the same agenda, and if you go all the way back to 1996, plenty of people have written about this. I read about it in Pat Buchanan, but there are a number of different sources you can read about. In 1996, there was an Israeli think tank that produced the Clean Break document, which laid out a number of regional rivals in the Middle East to Israel, with Iran being considered the crown jewel. And it was after that that all of a sudden the American government began to slowly topple each of these countries. Most recently, we had Syria, which was included in that. This is part of the same agenda being pushed by many of the same people. Like, for instance, obviously Netanyahu was actually involved in the production of that document, but also Richard Pearl was one of the main writers of that, who had a lot of say in George W. Bush's administration in 2001. There are reports of generals who came in following the events of 9/11, and he came into a meeting at the Oval Office, and Richard Pearl and a number of other people were sat there talking about time to invade Afghanistan, and he was like, what did Afghanistan have to do with any of this? Like, where did that come from? But they'd already had all of this planned out. So this is simply the next step in that. This is the crown jewel of this. And if you look at what's been going on in Syria since Assad fell, I believe they're already starting to make some gestures towards Russia and China, because the internal administration of that regime, after they put literal ISIS, Al-Qaeda in charge, has not been going great.
Really?
It has not been going great. I know.
How the Taliban?
I am shocked. I am absolutely shocked. And there's other footage as well. You can see just Lindsey Graham absolutely foaming at the mouth after all of this.
He really is completing his transformation into an actual pig, though, isn't he?
I think that's the case with many of these kind of like bloodthirsty rhinos, as they do. But one of the other things that's come out about it, obviously there is still a strain of MAGA. There is still a strain in the Republican Party that campaigned on anti-interventionism, that got alongside Trump because of the sorts of discussions that he was having about interventionism. People within the Libertarian Party of America sided with Trump because he was making himself out to be an anti-interventionist and somebody who could pull back on Ukrainian action in the lead up to the 2024 election. And Trump is actively beginning to target those people now. We already saw him target Marjorie Taylor Greene, who has now announced her decision that she's going to be leaving Congress. And now he is actively attacking Thomas Massie, who has been, frankly, a thorn in Trump's side for the past year, especially with going so hard on not supporting the big, beautiful bill, not giving up on the Epstein files, and other things. And Trump is now directly attacking him, most notably of all, making a statement at the bottom here. He is going to be supporting instead Ed Gulrain. He makes a statement here: unlike lightweight Congressman Massie, a true hater of Israel and a totally ineffective loser who has failed us so badly, Captain Ed Gulrain is a winner who will not let Kentucky down. And people have been pointing out that amongst this larger statement, just highlighting down there, that Massie, who very notably has not accepted money from AIPAC, unlike somebody like Lindsey Graham, who, by the way, just for everybody to know, has accepted over $1 million from AIPAC, and in 2022, during his campaign, took almost $200,000 combined from Lockheed Martin, Northrop Grumman, and Raytheon. Thomas Massie...
Just to think, he'd probably have done it for free.
Oh, no, absolutely. Like Ted Cruz. Like Ted Cruz, these people would all do it for free. The money on the side is just the cherry
icing on the cake
on top. But I decided to look a bit more into this Gulrain man, and it had some very, very interesting connections that were able to be sussed quite easily through looking into it. So there's this article from the Kentucky News that states here, Ed Gulrain, a Trump-endorsed candidate from Shelby County, officially launched his campaign against Massie Tuesday morning, stating, I've dedicated my life to serving my country and I'm ready to answer the call again. This district is Trump country. The president didn't, I assume he said this after having beaten up that guy in Chicago.
Smollett,
Jussie Smollett. The president doesn't need obstacles in Congress. He needs backup. I'll defeat Thomas Massie, stand shoulder to shoulder with President Trump and deliver the American first results Kentuckians voted for, Gulrain wrote in a press release. Massie said in response, the Uniparty in DC finally found someone willing to be a rubber stamp for globalist billionaires, endless debt and foreign aid, and forever wars in failed candidate and Lindsey Graham donor Ed Gulrain, because it turns out, he's a Lindsey Graham donor. 4th District voters appreciate having an independent conservative voice who works for them, and I look forward to continuing my fight for transparency, constitutional rights, secure borders, a true America First foreign policy, and fiscal responsibility. Now, the funding for this Gulrain man is coming from a political action committee affiliated with Trump's team called MAGA KY Kentucky. It unloaded $1.8 million in ads against Massie so far, according to the Federal Electoral Commission. And they had an article following up on that, telling you who is behind this PAC. And the 3 main donors behind it, who have spent over $1 million running ads, are 3 GOP-aligned billionaire donors, hedge fund managers Paul Singer and John Paulson, as well as a PAC with ties to Miriam Adelson, the widow of late Trump mega donor Sheldon Adelson. She, I think, recently said that she would donate $250 million to Trump if he ran for a 3rd term. They've contributed a total of $2 million to the PAC. Paulson gave the PAC $250,000. Adelson's Preserve America PAC offered $750,000, and Singer gave MAGA KY $1 million. And I thought this name, Paul Singer, sounded familiar to me, so I decided to look him up as well regarding some of the stuff that's been going on in Venezuela. And what it turns out is that he is going to be making a lot of money in Venezuelan oil through the events that have taken place over the past few days. It says here, one of President Donald Trump's top billionaire donors, who has spent the past several months backing a push for regime change in Venezuela, is about to cash in after the president's kidnapping of the nation's president. While he declined to tell members of Congress, Trump has said he tipped off oil executives before the illegal attack. There was
evidence of insider trading, and a decent amount of it on things like Polymarket.
It's
prior
a
to
question of how long ago he had tipped them off, because clearly with the strikes on Venezuelan boats as well back in September, this had been running up for a long time.
I mean, they had the fleet outside of there.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they've been sanctioning them for years, so it's no wonder that people were aware of it. At a large press conference following the attack, he said the US would have our very large United States oil companies go into Venezuela, which he said the US will run indefinitely and start making money for the United States. And again, given the fact that Venezuelan infrastructure with the government, other than Maduro and his wife, are still in place, even if they've got someone more friendly to the United States right now, it still remains to be seen. I know you say it could be a miracle, and it could just go across.
I'm not saying I think it will be. I just have this feeling. I think somehow Trump's going to luck his way through it. That it just happens to kind of.
I'd be very impressed if he did. I would like that to be the case, because frankly, I don't want to see more bloodshed.
Yeah,
I don't want to see America get mired down, especially in somewhere like South America, that's so close to their borders. Because that would just mean, if they do get mired down, a huge caravan of migrants going straight through Central America and Mexico up to the southern border again. And I'm sure they would camp out till 2028 to see if they can get in through a Democrat president. As Judd Legum reported on Monday for Popular Information, among the biggest beneficiaries will be the billionaire investor Paul Singer. In 2024, Singer, an 81-year-old with a net worth of $6.7 billion, donated $5 million to Make America Great Again Incorporated, Trump's super PAC. Singer donated tens of millions more in the 2024 cycle to support Trump's allies, including $37 million to support the election of Republicans to Congress. He also donated an undisclosed amount to fund Trump's second transition. Singer is also a major pro-Israel donor, with his foundation having donated more than $3.3 million in groups like to groups like Birthright Israel Foundation, the Israel America Academic Exchange, Boundless Israel, and others in 2021, according to tax filings. In November 2025, less than 2 months before Trump's operation to take over Venezuela, Singer's investment firm, Elliott Investment Management, inked a highly fortuitous deal. It purchased Citgo, the US-based subsidiary of Venezuela's state-owned oil company, for $5.9 billion, a sale that was forced by a Delaware court after Venezuela defaulted on its bond payments. Here's an interesting fact about that. The court-appointed special master who forced the sale, Robert Pincus, is a member of the board of directors for the American Israel Public Affairs Committee, AIPAC. Literally one of the directors of the of AIPAC pushed this sale through. And again, with this, what you've got to keep in mind is these investment companies will have been handpicked. They will have been handpicked to hand out rewards to massive donors for the party. We heard how much money he had donated in support of MAGA, and therefore this is his reward for doing so. Elliott Management hailed the court order requiring the sale in a press release, saying it was backed by a group of strategic US energy investors. Singer acquired Citgo's 3 massive coastal refineries, 43 oil terminals, and more than 4,000 gas stations at a major discount because of its distressed status. Advisors to the court overseeing the sale estimated its value at $11 to $13 billion, while the Venezuelan government themselves estimated it at $18 billion. After the US abducted Maduro this week, Trump named Rodriguez as Venezuela's interim president, and she was formally sworn in on Monday, but he warned that she'll pay a very big price if she refuses to do what we want. This is good news for Singer, who is expected to be one of the biggest beneficiaries of the oil industry controlled by US corporations, which he will likely not be subject to crippling sanctions. So, obviously, America has its own huge geopolitical reasons for wanting energy security in the Western Hemisphere, but as well, a lot of this seems to be done in service of rewarding huge donors that have been backing the MAGA movement since in the case of somebody like Miriam Adelson back in 2015, 2016. But with this guy, this seems to be a huge reward for him. He puts in a few tens of $millions here and there in support of the cause, and then he gets a huge payoff. So while, again, energy security, geopolitical concerns are a huge part of it, there is also a hefty deal of behind-the-scenes corruption with our corrupt oligarchy that goes with it. And that's why I always say with these things that they are not necessarily done to benefit you, the American people. They'll put on all of the big hype edits and get a load of accounts who may or may not be shills to support it for you, but ultimately, the people who will benefit most from this, even more so than the Venezuelan people, seem to be these huge money investors who get to make an absolute killing by buying up all of these resources at a huge discount, as reported here. So that's I had some more information off of the back of this, but I think I'll end it there.